Genesis chapter 1, verse 20. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." This day of creation holds both life in the sea and life in the sky. And today we're going to spend our time noticing the birds and the space they were created to move through. When I read this part of creation, I notice this is the first time living things are created that can move freely. Birds don't stay rooted in one place, they move through the sky. And when I picture that, I think about how big the sky is and how much space there is to move and travel. And when I think about how big the sky is, and then I think about the fact that God created it, it reminds me that God is bigger than things that already feel huge to us. And it makes me think about the kind of world God created, a world with space, a world with movement, a world where freedom exists. Today, as we paint, I want you to notice what it feels like to create something that belongs in that kind of space. Grab your supplies and let's get started. Hello, we are going to be painting this scene here, and before we get started, I just wanted to point out that I taped my paper off. I like to use just some blue painter's tape. It really helps with keeping these nice clean edges, and just for this project where we're actually using quite a bit of water and paint, it just keeps things smoother. It just makes it a little bit easier, the painting process. So I would recommend doing that. And I am going to warm up on my scripture page. Just going to paint with water. And if you are following along with me and adding your scripture to your page ahead of time and you're new here, well, first of all, thank you for joining me. So what I'd like to do is I like to just paint with water and then drop in my color. And this gives me a nice light color as I'm painting so that I can still see the scripture. Now, if you do not have the time to write out the scripture because you do got to do it ahead of time, or you don't like your handwriting, or maybe you've got small children who are also doing these lessons with you, you can actually sign up at the link that is in the video description here. And if you sign up, you will get access to a printable that I created that has that week's scripture. That will be emailed to you. And you also get first dibs at seeing the video lessons. So yeah, just something you could do. Don't have to, but want to let you know that that's available. Just popping in some color here. Now, I do want to share that we're going to be doing just very little drawing today. And I want to show you how to easily make the shape, the silhouettes of these birds. And you may want to grab just a piece of scrap paper first, like just a piece of computer paper or whatever you have lying around, to practice these shapes, because they are, if you've never done them before, they are just kind of a little different, you know? So I wanted you to have the opportunity to do that. You can also draw them on your watercolor paper first and outline them in your black marker, and then do your painting. I am actually going to be painting the background first, and then I'll go over with my black marker. If that just kind of makes you nervous because you know you can't erase on the watercolor paper after you've already put the paint down, then you can for sure kind of reverse the order. And if what I'm saying is just confusing, I'm sorry. I'll explain it better. I'm a visual learner and a better visual explainer. Okay, I'm going to give this a quick dry and then we'll get started with our painting. Okay, so for this painting, we are going to be using a few colors and we're going to create a gradient. So it's going to go blue, purple, pink, coral, yellow. Okay. If you want to change up the color scheme, you totally can. If you want to, I don't know, omit the purple blue and you just want to do pink, coral yellow, that's totally fine. I'm going to show you how to do this gradient and let you know the colors that I'm using in case you want to follow along with me exactly. I'm going to be using cobalt blue for the top, and then I've got violet, and then I have permanent rose. And for the coral, I'm actually going to mix some yellow and that permanent rose. So I'm going to start off by doing that because when we get into painting, you're going to see it's actually going to go pretty fast. Why is my brush so dirty? Okay, cleaning off this space. I'm kind of a messy maker. I'm sure my mom would tell you growing up, that's what I was, and it's what I still am. It's like a little explosion happened, a little explosion of art things or craft things. Okay, so I'm making my puddle here, and I'm trying to make something about the consistency of milk. When it comes to watercolor, the more water you add, the more transparent it will be. And I'm trying to really get a nice pop of color. If you want yours to feel a little bit more subdued, then for sure you can add more water to it. We are also going to be painting with water, so doing wet on wet. And whenever we do that, it will automatically lighten your color and make it more transparent, less vibrant, because, you know, we're adding water to that paint. So just keep that in mind. All right. Now this part's going to move a little bit fast, but I want to just kind of show you a couple of things that you want to keep in mind. You want to use the largest brush that you are comfortable with for this background sky bit, okay? And I am going to dip all the way in my water so that my brush is wet, you know, decently wet. Okay, and I am going to do strokes up and down all the way across my paper. And then I'm also going to go side to side, and I'm going, if you notice, I'm touching all the way to where that tape is. And my paper is nice and shiny, but I don't have any real big puddles. If you do have big puddles, just grab your paper towel, grab your brush, kind of dab your brush on the paper towel, okay, and then you can kind of pull some of that water off. Okay, but we do want it wet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my blue on the top, and I'm using my big brush still, and I'm really, let me show you, I'm really tapping into there to load up my brush with that color. Can you kind of see that? Okay. And I am going to now do a stroke that is side to side, so not up and down. And you can bring this blue down, you know, as far as you want. I'm going to stop about there. It's a little bit further down than I did the example, but that's fine. I cleaned my brush and I'm tapping on the paper towel. Now I'm going to, I actually re-dipped in the water. I'm going to tap into my purple. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap that bottom edge with the purple and then go back and forth. I'm wiping on my paper towel here and I can continue going back and forth. Now, the thing that can get a little bit tricky is we have to move quickly and we want to keep the paper wet. Okay, so you're going to see me kind of move pretty fast here, but it's the same concept. Now I've got pink back and forth, back and forth. I've done a bit of overlap with the pink. You're going to notice that this layer is pretty light compared to what I have here. That's because I actually did a second layer on this one. And I do, again, have to move fast because I want it to fade. Oh no, somehow, well, actually I know how. I got purple in my yellow, and those are complementary colors. So this is gonna look a little muddy. Okay, if something like this happens to you, just lift the color off. See what happened? I'll show you. My purple sits right next to my yellow, and when I grabbed my yellow, I accidentally grabbed some purple. Okay, I'm gonna be a little more careful. Okay. All right, there we go. Now I'm gonna do the same process again. And if you want to leave yours light like this, where it's at, you can totally just stop at this point. But I'm just gonna continue because I want a little more vibrancy. I can tell that my blue is starting to get like, the top part's a little bit drier, so I'm gonna continue moving quickly. And really utilize your paper towel. When you want to try to blend, I'm kind of tapping, let's scoot this over so it's easier to see. I'm tapping on my paper towel. See how pretty that is? My paper towel is so pretty. And that just helps to get some of the excess color off. Something else that's common whenever you begin painting with watercolor is blending too much, especially with this particular kind of paper. Okay, it will start, the paper will start to pill, okay, and kind of like break off. So I'm trying to prevent that. So I'm pushing kind of at like a medium pressure, okay? So it's not super light, but I'm not like really scrubbing super hard. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, it's damp, it's not soaking wet. I'm gonna grab a smaller brush and I'm gonna grab a round brush. And all I am trying to do is create just a little variation in my color. This is very subtle, you don't have to do it, you can do it, but there's a little bit of lightness kind of poking through. Do you see that? Like just a little bit lighter. And especially here, I notice I've got, it looks pretty blocky, like I've got a strip of blue and a strip of purple, and I want to try to break up that color a little bit. So this, or like the straightness of this line, I dip this in water, I'm going to tap it on my paper towel, and I'm just going to lift a bit of color here and there, and I'm not pushing super hard, and this kind of just breaks up a little bit of that sameness, I suppose, in the value of our colors. This is just called lifting. I'm not doing a ton. Kind of can read like clouds a bit, or just like wisps. Wisps. And my brush is not soaking wet. I think that's a trick. If you push, if you rub a lot, you're gonna again pill the paper. Trying to avoid that. I'm gonna just call this good, and I'm not going to continue messing with it. I think once I add the birds and everything, it's gonna really be working for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and dry this now. Okay, I've got my scrap paper here because I want to just show you how to make some of these bird shapes, especially because they're so small on here, and with the overhead camera, a lot of times it's hard to see if I'm drawing something small, like how I'm actually making that shape. So I want to make some birds here and just show you, and I'm going to make them bigger. So whenever you're thinking about a bird silhouette, I feel like the most common one is to just do this sort of shape. And there's literally nothing wrong with that. You can make all of your birds this shape, okay? And that will read like birds flying in the distance. However, if you don't want your birds to all feel like they're synchronized in their flight, so meaning their wings aren't going at the same rate all at the same time, we can change the wings just a bit and it will give it just a little bit more movement. So something that you can do instead of making it a deep M shape is to kind of flatten it out a bit, kind of like this, okay? So that would be this one right here, okay? And something else you can do is if you just kind of thicken this middle part here, kind of gives the impression that there's like a bird's body there, okay? Make this a little bit darker. See how that's reading bird? That bird's got some long wings. Something else that you can do is if you want the wings looking like they're flapping up is a curve and a curve, but it kind of, see how it kind of comes up like that. So this one is more like a soft curve and this one kind of comes up like that. And you can again add, like thicken this area right there and it'll give the impression of bird's body. Now you can, this might be harder to see. Okay, this might look really thick. You can, I'm changing my mind, kind of fill in some more of this space here to look like this shape where it kind of thins on the ends and then gets thicker the closer to the body it gets, okay, if you want. Another thing you can do is even with these M-shaped ones that are a little bit deeper is just adding a bit right there and that will help. And we can also do some wings that instead of going like this, they kind of come up and down and up and down, more like that. And that will give an impression of a bird in flight too. That's this one here. I was covering it. This one that you can't see right there, okay? And we can also, this kind of reminds me of a snitch now that I look at it from Harry Potter. Okay. You can also do one where the wings are down. So kind of like a little body and then down and down. It looks pretty funny. It kind of looks like some sort of mathematical, I feel like I should know this, some sort of mathematical symbol. If you want to get more detailed, see ours are so tiny that it's hard it's hard to really make this look like a bird, you know. It would have like little tail, like the tail would taper and all of that, but it's so tiny that I feel like no one's really gonna look that closely at it. And also this is yours. So you can decide. These shapes are definitely easier to do. And you can do all of them in this kind of M shape. That is fine. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to add these shapes with my ink pen. So what I did, which you could do too, is I actually started with a small micron pen because it's much easier for me to like kind of adjust if I need to, because the tip is so small. So a tip that I have for you is when you are adding these birds, kind of think about changing the direction of the birds, like the angles, like some are kind of coming up this way and some are that way, unless you want them all to feel like they're moving in the same pattern, which, I mean, birds also do that. So it's really up to you. But I like to just kind of start by, it almost feels more like a little sketch of what I'm doing, and I'll kind of place a few, and then I'll kind of go from there. So I'm basically just trying to make the wing shapes and trying to vary the angle just a bit. And you can do as many or as few as you want. I think maybe I'll do 5. Yeah, because I felt like that was kind of a lot of birds for this piece, but you can go bird crazy and add as many as you want, honestly. Do one that's like a little bit more flat. Why am I stuck? I don't know. Good question. And then I'll do that. Okay. Oh, those are like the same. Who cares? It's fine. Maybe they're friends. They're flying together. And then from here, I'll kind of just thicken up my lines and all of that. Okay. And that is what helps me. It takes away some of the intimidation. And this is what I was trying to explain at the beginning of the video. Not sure that I did a great job, but just that if you want, you can always do this part first before you paint the background, get it how you like, and then when you are sure that your ink is dried, then you can paint the background. That way, while you're working, you can erase, and it just can take some of the pressure off as well. All right, so something like that. That's good enough for me. Now what I want to do is I'm going to do these trees. Now you can totally do this with some black paint. I am going for the quicker way, which is a black marker. And this is also a waterproof one, but as long as this is completely dry, you could use something else. You could use a Sharpie. I feel like it tends to kind of spread out faster. That's why I prefer these, but use what you've got. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am just going to draw some lines that are going to be the trunks. And I've got them grouped, a few of them grouped together. And what I'm trying to do is vary the height of them. I made this one the tallest. I guess I'll do that again. Okay. And I want to just show you how you can easily make these tree shapes. The biggest thing is you just have to not try that hard. So I am going to literally be dabbing my pen all around. And what I'm trying to do is create the shape of a triangle as I'm making those. And I am leaving some white space so some of that background can show through. So I'm not filling in like a black triangle and filling it in. Okay, and the way that I do this is I start at the top and I just kind of tap, tap, tap around. And because I'm tapping and just kind of moving around, I can kind of control to make sure that I'm leaving some of that white space, some of that background showing through. Okay. And yeah, it's literally kind of like a little scribbly, a little tappy. Kind of want to get down to the bottom, maybe a little bit more scribbly because I'm trying to fill in to the bottom edge there. And then from here I can just kind of make adjustments. So I might widen this a bit, do a few more marks like that. And then I will do the same thing here. Okay, so if this feels intimidating or you've never done it, because it is kind of like, what in the heck are you doing? I am scribbling. You can just practice on a piece of paper too. Give it a go. You won't know until you try. And in the words of Bob Ross, we're going to just do happy little trees. Man, he would make trees look so easy too. And he always said a tree needed a friend. So there's a whole bunch of friends here. And I like to hold my brush more on its side when I do this. Same if I were using a regular brush and doing black watercolor. If you go the watercolor route, you are going to want to make sure that it's not super watery. because it's really easy to lose control of a black or very dark watercolor. This tree is like way smaller. That's okay. Kind of like the different heights. Trying to not have everything end on the same plane. All right, so it's kind of different where their tops end. Then I'll just do this last one. And if you wanted to, if you are really into bird silhouettes, you can look them up online. There's lots more that are more detailed. So if you have the time and you want to, that's another way you can change up your painting with a bit more detail if you'd like. Also, some of you have reached out to me and shown me pictures of what you've done, and I just want to say it makes me smile whenever I get your messages, because it just makes me happy to know that other people are enjoying this and hopefully feeling closer to God and spending some time studying. All right. Okay, so this is a tiny bit wet. I can tell because it's shiny. I'm going to give it just a quick dry, and then we'll pull the tape off. All right, now when you pull off the tape, just quick tip, instead of going straight across, pull and down at an angle slowly, and that will hopefully prevent your page from ripping. It does still happen sometimes, because look. Sometimes it just does. It happened to this one, even though I was pulling pretty slow. So yeah, this is also probably the most satisfying part, is when you get to take the tape off. You get the crisp, clean edges, except for that, I guess. I somehow got a dot of blue paint over there. That's okay. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed painting today. As you finish your project, just take a moment to notice what it feels like to paint something that lives in wide, open space. There's something really beautiful about living in a world that holds vast skies, movement, and possibility. A world that was created with more space in it than we could ever fill. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye, friends.